Hey, it's Liam, and I want to open today with two numbers that I think tell one of the most important stories in American agriculture right now. Number one, egg farmer income is forecast to collapse by 66% in 2026. 66% in a single year. Number two, cotton farm businesses are projected to see the single largest income increase of any commodity type in America this year, a jump of over $255,000 per farm. Same country, same economy, same year. Two completely opposite financial realities. And today I want to dig into both of those numbers, because buried inside them is a lesson about farm financial survival that I genuinely believe every farmer in America needs to understand. Not just egg farmers, not just cotton farmers, every farmer. Because what is happening to these two groups right now is not just a market story, it is a warning. And the farmers who hear it clearly and act on it are going to be in a fundamentally different position 5 years from now than the ones who don't. Let's start with the egg farmers because their story is one of the most dramatic reversals I have seen in any agricultural sector in recent memory. Just over a year ago, early 2025, egg farmers were having what could only be described as a once-in-a-generation moment. Prices had gone through the roof. Eggs hit $9 a dozen in some parts of the country. Grocery stores were rationing them. People were driving from store to store just to find a carton. The egg shortage was front-page news for months. And for the egg farmers who still had birds, who had survived the avian flu outbreaks that wiped out tens of millions of laying hens, profits were extraordinary. One agricultural economist put it plainly. He said profits for egg producers who still had supply were likely near all-time highs. All-time highs. While every other farmer was struggling with input costs and low commodity prices, egg farmers were quietly having the best year of their lives. And now, 12 months later, that same income has collapsed by 66%. Let me say that again because I want it to land. 66% drop in 1 year. That is not a bad quarter. That is not a slow season. That is the bottom falling out of an income stream that looked completely bulletproof just 12 months ago. So what happened? How does something go from all-time highs to a 66% crash in a single year? The answer is one of the oldest and most brutal forces in all of agriculture, the boom and bust cycle. When avian flu wiped out tens of millions of laying hens, the supply of eggs collapsed. Basic economics tells you what happens next. Prices spike. And they did, dramatically. But here is what high prices always do in any market. They send a signal. That signal says, there is money to be made here. And farmers responded to that signal the way farmers always do. They invested, they rebuilt their flocks. They stocked their hen houses as fast as they possibly could. New farms entered the market. Existing farms expanded. And now, less than a year later, there are roughly 9 million more laying hens in the United States than there were at this same time last year. 9 million more hens producing eggs into a market where consumer demand has not grown anywhere near fast enough to absorb them all. Supply surged, demand stayed flat. Prices collapsed. And the egg farmers who invested everything into rebuilding and expanding during the high price window are now watching their income fall off a cliff, while they are still carrying the debt they took on to get there. That is the boom and bust cycle, and it does not care how hard you worked. It does not care how smart your decisions seemed at the time. It just moves. And when it moves against you, the financial pain can be severe. Now let's talk about cotton, because the cotton story is genuinely fascinating, and honestly more complicated than the headline number suggests. And I always want to give you the full picture. Cotton farm businesses are projected to see a net cash income increase of over $255,000 per farm this year. That is a staggering number, the largest income jump of any commodity type in America in 2026. Now, here is the part I want you to really pay attention to, because this is where the lesson gets important. That $255,000 income increase is not coming from the cotton market. Cotton prices are not surging. In fact, Cotton prices in 2026 are sitting in the mid-60 cents per pound range, which most agricultural economists describe as financially painful for producers. The real cost of producing cotton in America is significantly higher than what the market is paying for it right now. Brazilian cotton farmers are outcompeting American producers on the global market. China, historically one of the biggest buyers of American cotton, has been diversifying away from U.S. supply. The hard truth about cotton is this: out of the last 28 years, U.S. cotton producers have had positive returns in only 4 of them. 4 years of profit, 24 years of losses. That is not a rough patch. That is a structural problem in the economics of growing cotton in America. So where is the $255,000 coming from? Government payments. Specifically, a massive surge in direct government support flowing to cotton farmers in 2026 through programs like the Price Loss Coverage Program and the Farmer Bridge Assistance Program, both of which were supercharged by provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that we talked about in our last video. The government stepped in with a financial lifeline, and for cotton farmers who are enrolled in those programs, which, as we have talked about before, is not all of them, that lifeline is real and meaningful and is making a genuine difference right now. So what is the lesson here? Because I said at the start that there is something every farmer needs to hear in these 2 stories, and I want to make that explicit. The lesson is this: in agriculture, no income stream is permanent. No good market lasts forever. No bad market lasts forever either. The cycle always turns, and the farmers who build their financial lives as if the good times will last indefinitely are the ones who get hurt the most when they don't. Think about the egg farmers who had their best year ever in early 2025. What did the smart ones do with those record profits? The farmers who knew their history, who knew that what goes up in a commodity cycle always comes back down. They used those high profit months to pay down debt, to build cash reserves, to reduce their exposure so that when the price correction came, and it always comes, they had a cushion to absorb it. And the farmers who assumed the high prices were the new normal, who expanded aggressively, took on new debt, added birds, built new facilities, all at the peak of the market. They are the ones feeling that 66% income drop the hardest right now. I am not saying those farmers made stupid decisions. In the moment, with egg prices at record highs, expanding made complete logical sense. The mistake was not the expansion. The mistake was not managing the financial risk that comes with a boom. And the cotton story teaches a slightly different but equally important lesson, the lesson about what government support actually is and what it isn't. Government payments are real. They matter. They are keeping a lot of farms afloat right now that would otherwise be in serious trouble. And I will always be on this channel helping you access every dollar of government support you are entitled to, because that money exists and it belongs to you. But here is my honest opinion, and I want to say this plainly: government payments are a bridge. They are a temporary intervention to help farmers survive a difficult period. They are not a business model. And any farm that builds its financial plan around the assumption that government support will always be there at current levels is taking a risk that I think deserves some serious thought. Farm policy changes. Programs get modified, scaled back, or eliminated when political winds shift. The cotton farmers receiving $255,000 in government support this year are in a better position than they would be without it, but the underlying cotton market is still financially broken. And no amount of government money permanently fixes a structural market problem. The farms that are going to be healthy 5 and 10 years from now are the ones using the good years and the government support years to fix their cost structures, pay down their debt, diversify their income, and build the kind of financial resilience that lets them survive when the support goes away. I want to take a moment and zoom out even further, because I think there is a third lesson in these 2 stories that is easy to miss but might be the most important of all. Both of these stories, the egg collapse and the cotton windfall, are examples of what happens when farmers are almost entirely dependent on forces completely outside their control. The egg farmer cannot control avian flu. They cannot control how many other farmers rebuild their flocks. They cannot control whether 9 million new hens flood the market the same year they invested everything in rebuilding their operation.
The cotton farmer cannot control what Brazil's production costs are.
They cannot control whether China decides to buy from American farmers or look elsewhere. They cannot control what happens to cotton futures on an exchange in New York. Both of them are exposed. Both of them are at the mercy of market forces, disease cycles, trade policy, and weather in ways that make their financial futures genuinely uncertain no matter how well they farm.
Now, I am not saying that is going to change completely.
Commodity farming has always involved exposure to forces you cannot control. That is part of the deal. But I keep coming back to the farmers I talk about on this channel who have found ways to create income streams that are at least partially insulated from those forces. The farmer who sells direct to consumers and sets their own price. The farmer who processes their raw product into something branded and premium. The farmer who has 3 or 4 income streams instead of one. The farmer who built cash reserves during the good years so a bad year doesn't become a catastrophic year. Those farmers are not immune to the cycles, but they are more resilient to them. And right now in this farm economy, resilience is the most valuable thing a farm can have. Let me give you something practical before I let you go, because this channel is always about giving you one thing you can actually do. I want you to think about the single biggest income stream on your farm right now. The one thing that, if it went down by 66% next year, would threaten the survival of your operation. Got it in your mind? Good. Now I want you to ask yourself honestly, how exposed are you to forces completely outside your control when it comes to that income stream? How much of your price is set by markets you have no influence over? How much does your income depend on government support that could change? How much would a disease outbreak, a weather event, or a trade policy shift affect it? I am not asking you to abandon that income stream. I am asking you to look at it clearly, the way a good business owner looks at their biggest risk, and ask yourself what you are doing to build a cushion around it. Because the egg farmer who had their best year ever in 2025 and the egg farmer who is hurting in 2026 are often the same person. The only difference is what they did with the good year when they had it. I am Liam, and I build this channel every week because I believe that the information gap between farmers who thrive through difficult markets and farmers who don't is usually not a gap in effort or skill. It is a gap in financial knowledge. In understanding how the cycles work, in knowing what questions to ask before the bad year arrives instead of after. That gap is what this channel is here to close. If this video made you think about your farm differently today, share it with a farmer you know, because somewhere out there is a farmer having a really good year right now who needs to hear this before the cycle turns on them. Take care of your farm. Take care of your family. I will see you in the next one.